one right there,
It's a big
first
story.
question, huh?
I've had my caffeine.
You know what? Again, obviously, you know, there's no hiding from the fact that that it means a little more. Obviously, I mean that would be for anybody in this situation. This happens all the time in the world, right? You move on from a job and you go to the next job, and you know, except now we're playing each other in the conference finals, you know, immediately after. So, you know, I think the important thing for me here though is the hockey and the focus on the players. You know, it's not about Pete DeBoer and, you know, his history with Vegas. I have a tremendous amount of respect for the players in that room. There's a lot of guys there I loved coaching, and it's going to be a great test for us. But I'm a Dallas Star now. I love our group. I think we're getting better as the playoffs are going on here, and it should be a hell of a series.
Was the trip back there a good thing? I mean, it seems like that you and Spotter both enjoyed some memories of what you did in the past, and you know, again, took the next step forward.
Yeah, you know what? It does help that we've been there a couple times already, and we've played them. So, you know, I think everybody's kind of moved forward, and you know, they've had a hell of a year, and Butch has done a great job, and you know, it should be a great series.
A couple things on last night. Just what ended up being with your decision with Colin to go with Colin?
Yeah. Well, I think Hack's dealing with a little something, and so that made the decision really easy at that point. You know, you put in a player who's compromised, or you go with a healthy guy, and I think, you know, we've erred on putting the healthy guys in as much as possible here in the playoffs, just because of how tough a road it is. We're going to need everybody.
We've talked about this before, about the way that you kind of approach doing certain things, and Essa had, by his admission, one of his worst games of his career. Then you started him, and same thing with Colin, who had played. Is that an intentional thing of making sure they're on the ice first and just get going?
We did talk about that. You know, we wanted him to get immediately into the game, fresh start. You know, he had a tough night, but he didn't have a lot tougher night than a lot of our players or coaches in Game 6. You know, we all had an off night, so. But we wanted to get him right back in there. He's a proud guy, and like Jake, he responded. I thought he was excellent.
With Miro Heiskanen, obviously you've coached some very good defensemen in your career. What is it about him that he can take over a game, and are there any characteristics of his game that remind you of other guys?
Yeah, you know what? It's a great question. He's a unique player. I think someone you know, mentioned Niedermeyer or along those lines. You know, I don't think I've coached a player like Miro. I've had really good offensive defensemen, Brent Burns, Erik Karlsson, that, you know, could defend and did a good job, but weren't defense first mentality guys. You know, Miro has that special mindset where, you know, he takes a lot of pride in defending and shutting the other team down and making sure he's not scored against when he's on the ice. He never cheats to create points or offense at the expense of that, and that's rare for an elite offensive defenseman. And you know, so I haven't had a guy quite like him. And I walked out of the rink with him last night after he played 31 minutes, and he looked like he's ready to play another game. So he's a special athlete.
To that end, I happened to be standing there as you walked out together, and it just seemed like there was a more pronounced pride that you had. I mean, I've only been here for not even a year, but what is your relationship like with him? Because it seemed like you guys have kind of a connection of sorts.
Well, I just have a tremendous amount of respect for him. I mean, he comes, he's as low maintenance a star player as you could get. He comes in, you tell him when to practice, where to be, what to do. You know, no questions asked. You know, he's just he's a great pro and takes a lot of pride in his job, and you know, nothing is more important to him than winning. You know, not individual statistics or anything else. And I just, you know, not just me, but I think everyone in that room has a lot of respect for that.
They scored more in these playoffs than anybody has. How big a series is this for him and your defense?
Yeah, it's a great test for us. I mean, Seattle was one of the highest scoring teams in the league, you know, and we bent but didn't break on, you know, a few of the nights that we had them, and a couple of the nights we broke. So, you know, I think we're going to have to be better than we were against Seattle for longer stretches. I think we were good for periods of this past series and got away with it, but we're going to have to be better for a longer stretch against these guys.
Pete, all 4 teams left playing are from, I guess, non-traditional markets. They've only been in this, 20 years or less.
Yeah.
When you see hockey with all the finals basically in the lower half of the country, what does that do to you?
Yeah. Well, I think it's fantastic. I think it's exactly what Gary Bettman predicted when he put in the salary cap and made parity a priority in this league. You know, I think the battles to the start of the playoffs, the playoff hockey, where if you're one of the 16 teams, you have, you know, everyone feels like they have a chance to win the Stanley Cup if you're one of those teams. That's not the same in every sport. You know, I think there's some preconceived notions about the 2 or 3 teams that are going to be left standing at the end of the day in some of the other major sports, and it's usually accurate every year. You know, in hockey, it seems like you know, there's always wild cards coming out of left field. So I think that's what makes the game great.
You talked about the atmosphere that you've sensed in Dallas at games and how
Yeah.
good it is. Do you sense something different when you go to these non-traditional, when you're playing in the
Yeah.
non-traditional, whether it be Vegas or whether it be
Yeah.
Carolina or one of those?
Yeah, you do. You know what? It's a lot more fun. It's a lot more of a party. It really is. You know, I think the traditional markets, you know, you go to a game, and I'm Canadian, but you go to a game in Toronto, you know, it's very, very reserved, very corporate, very, you know, you come to these games, it's a party, and Vegas is the same, and, you know, I think it's a fantastic environment.
Pete,
How
when you
happy
came
are you
here,
to
it
keep
was well known that your respect for Jim.
Yeah.
When you look at this past year, signing Rope and Joe, Thomas Harley, Wyatt
Yeah.
Johnston, Dadonov, Domi, just what can you say about the job that he's done
Yeah.
over this past year?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the best compliment I can give him is he's come as advertised. I mean, I knew Jim, but I didn't know him really well. But one of the most respected men in the hockey world when you talk to people, you know, from any other organization or anyone who's crossed his path. And, you know, to be in the game for a lifetime like he has and not find anybody to have a bad word to say about you is pretty special. And, you know, I think that's exactly what he's been, both as a person, but also at his job.
Also, with his job, though, how has that relationship been with you guys? You're the one that has to use all these
Yeah.
tools. What's the dynamic been like throughout, from the Wyatt decision to the
Yeah.
trade deadline to Harley, all those things?
Yeah, well, it's been very inclusive, you know, and you know, Jim values people's opinion in the room around him, and again, you know, you think that's just common sense and normal, but that's not always the case every place you work. So, you know, I found him very inclusive, very knowledgeable, and you can't. His experience in building teams and seeing Stanley Cup winners and going out and getting important pieces, and the value he put on the importance of fitting into our room at the deadline, as far as personalities go with Domi and Dadonov, I think was something that was really underrated and a real key part.
This makes 4 straight stops for you that your first year gets at least to the conference finals. Is there something about your own personality maybe that did, like, year 1 just clicks for you?
I don't know. You know, I've heard that said before, and you know, and I want to remind people that I also got to the conference final my 3rd or 4th year in San Jose, and my 2nd year in Vegas. So it's not just a 12-month gig, hopefully. But I think anytime you're coming into a new team, obviously, there's been some issues, or you wouldn't have the job and be a new coach there. And I think we've taken a lot of pride in trying to get things fixed and on track quickly. And I think players can develop a quick belief in a new path after a tough year the year before. I think that doesn't necessarily mean you're going 3 or 4 rounds deep, but it gives you a chance anyway.
We talk about your depth a lot. Was last night's game a good example? It seems like Marchman played his best game. Dadonov. The fourth line I thought was good.
Yeah.
Harley. It just seems like that was a really good display of what your depth can
Yeah,
be.
we had no passengers last night. We had everybody was there and ready to go and contribute, and I like how we stuck with it. We were playing well, and we didn't get impatient because we weren't scoring. We stuck with it and grinded and played a real complete game.
Is it important for an individual to see that potential play out? Like I said, I thought Marchman had his best game, and kind of shows what he can do and be.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's had a tough go this year with some different things and setbacks and injuries, and obviously the personal stuff he's been through. So, but we're a much better team when he's in the lineup, and I think he has a potential to be a difference maker here as we go forward.
You're not getting the break that Vegas had, but do you think it's important to get at least a little bit of
Critical.
breather?
Yeah, critical. I'm glad we're not starting until Friday. I think there was some schedules out there depending on Edmonton or Vegas or who won that we might have had to start as early as Wednesday. So I think these days are critical for our group, especially the toll of the Minnesota series, how physical that was. That takes a piece of you, and then 7 games against a really relentless Seattle team that we had to work for everything we got. It was 2 tough series, so I think the guys are excited about a break.